Well, in this episode of Slick Works, I'm going to see if I can turn this thing into a reliable daily driver. So this is my 1979 Pontiac Grand Prix. It's a 79 as it turns out. It was advertised as an 81, and I was looking up what you can do with an 81 on Google, and didn't quite look right. So I looked up 1980 and I was like, the car is an 80. No, it's actually a 79. We actually just found out at the insurance place. I didn't even look at the registration paper until then. But it does run. It stops mostly. So yeah, we're gonna bring her home. Just give you guys a little tour of the beautiful interior. I think most of this mold will come off. It's got some issues. Tack works. I thought I saw other gauges. Maybe not. Anyways, yeah, the seats are a little rough, but it's a T-top car, and they don't lock down. So I'm gonna pull those out before driving it home. But when I pull it out before driving it home, the problem with that is the whole interior is full of rat turds, so I'm probably going to get a mouthful of that. And yeah, it's moldy, but honestly I think it'll clean up okay. As far as door panels and stuff like that, probably just make something out of aluminum diamond plate. Just get it right. Also, the brake pedal goes all the way to the floor before you get any pressure. So I just topped up the brake fluid reservoir. I told myself I wouldn't buy it if it had a leaky wheel cylinder, and guess what? It has a leaky wheel cylinder. But everything else about the car I love. It was advertised that it has a cam in it. Definitely hear some overlap once the idle settled down. So we're just gonna squirt some carb cleaner into it and get her fired up, and yeah. All right. Come on. Man, that battery is... There it goes. Yeah. She sounds mean. Oh, probably. Okay. She's a runner. Definitely got a cam in it. You can hear that overlap. I like it. I like it a lot. We have fuel gauge. I'm assuming that works. Just put some fuel in it. Oil pressure gauge works. Voltmeter looks good. Not sure. I do believe it is charging, so that probably works. Temp gauge, we got nothing. So I'm gonna go under the hood and see if I can sort that out. So before I drive it home, just want to bring it up to temp. Make sure that the thermostat opens. See how still the water is? So when the thermostat opens, just so I know it's not going to overheat on the way home, you'll start to see the water moving around in there as it cycles through the engine. Okay, so we were just running the Grand Prix for a while, and she was getting real hot. The temp gauge doesn't work, but it was smelling real hot. And then I just figured something out, because I noticed that there's an interesting way that they wired it, and it turns out that is the fan for the radiator. I think we're gonna switch that, run a wire to this little hole in the dash, and have a little toggle for the radiator so that I can actually have heat in here again. Yeah, well, at least we know we have a fan.
she is.
Okay, well the Grand Prix is home. I was really hoping to drive it in and give it a few revs for Mrs. Slick just to show her how healthy the engine sounds. But no joke, pulling it from the road into the end of my driveway, it died and the starter gave up the last of whatever life it had, so it needs a new starter. Also, I drove the whole way back on this tire and you can't really kind of see it there. Yeah, look at that. Anyways, this tire was coming apart. Like, look at this. Look, let me just get the, look at that. Those are cords that you can see through the tire. And I was wondering why it had such a crazy death wobble at like 80k an hour. And that's the answer. Also, this wheel's out of true. Definitely bent. Looks like it was bent here and someone tried to bash it back in shape, but as I was driving, that was definitely being a bit of a wobbler for me too. Happy it's home. Didn't have to call a tow truck. Had my hair in the breeze the whole way with these awesome T-tops. I gotta say, it looks good sitting in the shop. It's full of potential, but it's time to get into it. So let's get into it. All right, let's see if we could learn a little about this carb here. So we have vacuum secondaries. So these will only open obviously when you're at full throttle. So the whole thing will go back and then there we go. Yeah, so some big old secondaries on that. Here we have, this is an automatic choke. So inside this little box is a little coil, and as the intake manifold heats up, that coil starts to unwind itself, so then it opens up the butterflies on the choke. Kind of interesting. Also, a lot of unnecessary extra hoses and clamps and all sorts of weird stuff, but that, I think it's a Quadrajet. Rochester Quadrajet. That's the one. You see loads of cars with these carbs on them. A lot of people hate them. Never got them running right, but David Freiberger says they're okay, so they're okay in my books. Okay, it's still day one of owning this thing. One more thing I gotta check, because I don't know, and I'm still limping. I got this gout in my foot. What kind of 34-year-old gets gout? Like, I haven't been working in the trenches or anything. Okay, here we go. So I got no burnt rubber spray up here. I was really hoping to find some. He said that he only drove it to take it out and do burnouts with, but I don't see any burnt rubber. That's okay. All right, let's have a look at this side. We got even tire wear on both sides. This guy said he did burnouts. Come on. Ooh, look at that frame. That is a more together frame than Genie's frame. He said he did burnouts. Come on, look at all this tread. You didn't do burnouts. Come on, buddy. I just gotta know which one you like the best, Chevy. This is very important. Okay, Chevy, which one?
That one and that one. Actually, just that one.
Which one? Go closer, I can't tell.
This one.
Yes! Yeah, buddy, you know what that is?
No.
That's a 1970 Chevy Chevelle.
Oh.
One of my favorite cars ever.
Oh.
You passed the test. So I've managed to get this car running a little bit, and yeah, it even does a posi burnout. Yep, 2-tire fire in this old thing. So there's all the money that I spent to buy the car in value in just the rear end alone, but it needs a good clean, and there's vacuum leaks galore. It sounds like a rubber chicken under the hood. So over here I've collected a bunch of parts and stuff that I think will probably help and get this thing running a little bit better, but I'll fire it up and I'll show you what I mean about under the hood, the old rubber chicken thing. It's pretty funny. Yeah, pretty awful sound, right? Pretty darn awful sound. I'm gonna start just replacing lines because there's leaks everywhere, vacuum leaks everywhere. And I think that squeal is coming from underneath the carb, so I'm just gonna pull the carb off and replace that, and probably even put a little RTV in there or something just to make sure it is fully sealed up. Full of surprises, this thing. Apparently the carburetor was rebuilt. I found an old ad for this car and the ad said it had a rebuilt carburetor, so it must be rebuilt. Did they know what they were doing? Well, judging by the quality of wood they used to block off this rad hose here, I would say they knew exactly what they were doing. So I've given it a real good soak with some carb cleaner, and Quadrajet has these tiny little idler tubes in them. So I just pulled out a length of MIG welding wire and just run it through the tubes, hose it down with carb cleaner. So now I'm going to spray it all off with some compressed air, put it all back together, see if I can get it nice and sealed on the intake manifold, and then hopefully it won't be doing that. Also, budget, so I am going to reuse this, but it's probably pretty dry and crusty. So I'm just going to put it in a little pan and soak it in some gear oil for a bit. So here's what I have for a pan, and here's what I have for gear oil. So here's something interesting. Look how these screws are set. That pretty sure they should be pretty well even, so I'm going to screw them all the way in, not too tight, and then wind them out 1.5 turns, and I think that's pretty standard for every carburetor, so yeah, we'll try that. Okay, so while that carb gasket's soaking in dinosaur juice, I'm going to go ahead and switch out the temp gauge. The gauge isn't temp gauge. The coolant temp sensor. Anyways, it's down in here. Right, this guy here. So it's not working in the cluster. Might be the cluster. I don't know. Might be the temp sensor itself. It's a cheap part. Might be this nasty cooked wire. No idea. But, you know, it's cheap enough to just replace it. So I'm going to go ahead and replace it. And come on, get in there. Yeah. No, get in there. Oh man, get in the hole. Get in there, come on, get in there. Come on, get in there. This is a dumb idea. Why won't that thread? I gotta plug that hole in my finger as best as I can. Is that the wrong size? That's the right size. Get in there, come on.
A few moments later.
Just thread. I got it. Well, that was easy. Holy. Ow. What fun. What fun we're having. And there it is, installed. Well, that was relatively painless. Like, as I do stuff like this, I almost feel like the tingle on the back of my neck of like a mullet coming in or something. Okay, so one thing about this carb that's got me super confused. Okay, so there's this little arm right here that when you're at wide open throttle, it allows the secondaries to open up, right? The secondaries open up by this little vacuum finger here. But look, the way the arm moves when the secondaries open is that way. But these vacuum modules are meant to suck in under high vacuum. So it really wouldn't. So why would that allow? I mean, it's not even doing anything. You can see that. I don't know. I'm so confused. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know what to do. I'm just going to reassemble it, throw it back in the car, hook everything back up, put this little guy back on there. If that even does anything, I don't even know. Like, what the heck is... Why is this even necessary? It's not even tight. Can I just... One hand. One hand. Okay. I think we'll leave that line. No. No, we won't. Real quick, I'm just going to shave this intake gasket because it looks like the butterfly valves have been kind of chewing into it a bit. So I'm going to shave a little bit off of all four corners before I install it. Choking aside, I have new connections going to the carb. Every single connection that goes to the carb is brand new. So I think it should run and idle better. So we're gonna go ahead and try to fire it up. I'm gonna put a little bit more oil in it because it does have a bad oil leak and I don't really trust where it's at. Put some oil in it, see if we can get this thing started. Bit of spilt coolant cooking off. Well, that's a bummer. Oh well, something to do, gauge, maybe wiring, who knows. Well, it runs really well. So I think the starter is getting heat soaked. So once it idles for a bit, those headers are just cooking up the starter until, well, heat creates resistance with any electronical stuff. So yeah, it doesn't want to start. And I've tested the alternator. It seems to be charging the car at like 14.2, 14.6 volts. Which is good enough, but I mean, it's been sitting there idling for a while, and I've noticed that the fans, the coolant fans that someone jimmy rigged together, make the voltage meter drop quite a bit. So I'm gonna stick this on the battery and see where we're at. 12.32, yep, that is definitely enough to start the car. So that starter motor is just getting toasted by the headers. That's what's going on. Let's just take a minute to appreciate that I drove home on this. Look at this. Is it round? Like, my goodness. Well, it runs better. It starts every time. That's about all the work I feel like putting into this thing right now. But there's two other things that have been plaguing my mind. The first thing is, I don't know if it could do a really good burnout, A, and B, I've always wondered if I could fit a donut in my driveway. So I'm gonna go ahead and try that. Okay, well, we know it does posi traction burnouts, but will it do a donut on this tiny little pad? I don't know. I've cleared it off. I blew all the rocks off it, so we'll see. So thanks for watching, guys, and as always, if you liked what you saw, please hit the subscribe button down below, like, comment. You're gonna wanna comment for this. We do have the Slickworks Slick sound effect of today, this episode, or whatever. So the last episode that I did, yes, it was a key left in the ignition, but nobody commented the make. So this, I want the make. What kind of car do you think it is? If you get it right, you get a shout out in the next episode in big letters across the bottom of the screen right here. So here's your sound effect. Tell me what it is. And there it was. Thanks for watching, guys. Comment down below. Stay tuned. We got some great stuff coming up on the channel, as well as more custom paint stuff, of course. So yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks.